Okay. So if everyone can, tonight, just there's a few of us, so if we could please put our feet on the the floor, like notice the contact between our feet and the floor. That this earth was created by God, and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from time immemorial have been feeling that God, the Creator, asked them to be custodians of the land in Australia and instructed them. And they have stories that go through the two ice ages, and history and culture that is connected to looking after the land. So as we touch the land, to sort of honor that connection and honor their tradition and their conviction, and to also acknowledge that we are beneficiaries of their long history of doing that. That's why we have so much land in this country, because they've been taking care of it. To just give our respects to them and to their elders in the past, and those who are continuing that tradition and trying to help all of us to have a deeper connection with the land and the sky and the water, and how that's part of us and we are part of the land. So thank you.
Unto us a Son is given, for unto us a child is born, unto us a Son is given, and a government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, the everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. There shall be no end.
For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given.
And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called, everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace, of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. There shall be no
This is a quote that I chose. The prime requisites for them that take counsel together are purity of motive, radiance of spirit, detachment from all else save God, attraction to his divine fragrances, humility and lowliness amongst his loved ones, patience and long suffering in difficulties, and servitude to his exalted threshold. Should they be graciously aided to acquire these attributes, victory from the unseen kingdom of Baha shall be vouchsafed to them.
What does it mean by his divine fragrances?
So my understanding is that God's divine fragrances is how through his words and creation, he is giving us the fragrances, the sweet messages, his love, his kindness, all these are coming through his words as well as his creation. So we should be attracted to those. So when we are consulting to find the truth or to find a solution to a problem, or to launch a project or a venture or whatever it is, we consult together for the participants who are involved with those. So when they have these qualities, then the light will be shown, the truth will be really revealed. The right path will be given to us. And that, to me, even as a group here, we are trying to do that. So we should try to develop these qualities. That's mine.
Can I add that I think this world is a metaphor, has lots of metaphors. Maybe that's the purpose of it. So when we talk about seeing God and hearing God, or hearing his word, or fragrances, these are material things we understand, which is a bridge to help us understand what we're feeling spiritually.
I would say is teachings and the writings, that the source is from the manifestations.
A young man from India is joining. We used to study book 2, Ruhi books. It's a course that the Baha'is study with the friends. For the first time he's joining. Among these, I think the purity of motive is the most important. Probably that's why it was given at the beginning. Our motive should be pure.
I think even in parliaments, where I don't know whether they're showing what percentage of these qualities they're showing, but when they do have purity of motive and humility, patience, etc., I think their consultation goes much better.
Shall I go to the next quote? Unless anyone wants to comment.
I would say, please note the consultation sometimes this is only on the surface because all the major decisions already made at the back door or on the hallway on the way out to the meeting. Depends on the budget and everything. So all the major decision has been made, but they just want to show that they have consultation in front of the public. So that's not a real consultation.
Yes, you are right.
The last sentence, it says graciously aided to acquire these attributes. I think these attributes or acquiring these attributes are dependent on acceptance by God and being aided by God in order to obtain these attributes. So if a person has been attracted to divine fragrances or teachings, then has humility and lowliness, then it will be he or she will be guided towards acquiring these attributes.
My understanding is that when we really consult to get the truth, people consult should have these attributes, so the truth will be shown, or so the right decision will be made. So if we are not attached, or if we have some other hidden agenda, then we go to consult, then the decision will not be the right one. But when we want to get really the truth or the right decision or right direction or whatever it is, the people who are consulting should have these qualities. Then we will be assisted by God to make the right decision.
I think what Armand was saying, that to acquire these qualities, we need God's grace.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, we need God's grace in order to obtain these attributes.
Mm.
Shall we go to the next one? Is there anyone, Sachi or Perimal, Rahul? So let's go to the next one. This is Sachi, we can do, and then
Shall I read it?
yes, please.
Yeah, free thinkers are those who are willing to use their minds without prejudice and without fearing to understand things that clash with their own customs, privileges, or beliefs. This is a good quote for us to update and upgrade, because we should not stagnate on what is told by our ancestors. Of course, they are not wrong, they are correct I'm talking about the time period. And in fact, to my mind, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Abdul Baha, all these people are free thinkers. That's why they brought in the new religion or new way to look at our spirituality or disciplines. So that's why now it is time for us, what I feel, is to go upwards some more into the science, especially the creation. We all believed, I believed before, that God created us. But when we see into the universe or look into the universe for the cosmic objects and the number of objects and the time period they have taken to evolve into or develop into, that shows there is some other automatic or natural thing. That's why nowadays this Big Bang theory has been accepted worldwide as the process of creation or the theory of creation, which is answering so many questions that were unknown and unseen to us. In fact, the latest computers, powerful computers, and the telescopes have helped us to go closer to these objects and see the things what are happening there and how things are formed. Say, for example, formation of Earth with the minerals is very well explained in this theory. Why is that? Earth is a rocky planet with elements and minerals, and Saturn and Jupiter are all gaseous planets. So, and how our Earth is finely tuned for life. So this is something scientific, which I believed. Anyway, I'll leave it for your discussion. I will only cite our religious prophets as my free thinkers. I welcome any comments and discussions on that. There is no hard and fast rule of understanding.
I really like the quote. We all should become free thinkers. Because I think to a certain extent, we all have some sort of traces of prejudice or within us. So the more that we try to remove those traces of prejudice, the better will be the understanding of the reality of the truth. And also better will be our understanding of our fellow human beings. So I really like this quotation. And again, for our own group, this forum is very, very relevant and important.
Can I comment? Yeah, I think the scientific community probably for several centuries now has been doing much better than the average community, including religious people, at identifying prejudices and overcoming them, because they're using the scientific method, which is a systematic way to do that. But it's interesting, if you study the philosophy of science, you find that even scientists tend to work in communities. And when there's opposite evidence, it takes a kind of a revolution, they call it, to switch from one paradigm to another. So identifying and removing prejudice is a real challenge and a very important one.
I like to bring a metaphor here. They say when you want to drive a horse, whichever you want it to go, you cover the sides of the eyes, and the horse would follow your directions always. It would not go sideways. It would go the way you would like to go. So to me, a free thinker has those covers off, and that person can look broadly everything, rather than looking in one direction and say, this is my fate, I want to go this way, and that's it. Because that person has got the covers on and does not see the rest. So it's important to be a free thinker, so that we would not have any prejudice against other understandings. So we shouldn't be like the horse that is covered up and are driven by others.
Can I please say something here? Leo Tolstoy is a very famous person, very famous writer. With this code, is there no problem there unless when I see the word privilege. Privilege here means that there should be a ruling class or somebody with privilege, and there will be a class as people have no privilege. So whether you remove prejudice or not, privilege still be the point, the target point. So therefore, custom, belief, or whatever, but privilege is something very special and people fight for. And therefore, free thinkers is very hard to talk their mind, because if they are in a minority group, they can be a free thinker. There will be somebody indoctrinate the ideas into their brain, and they have to be following the policies and practice or whatever of the ruling class. Whether they want to remove prejudice or not, they will not be able to, because the privilege is here.
Yes. Well, one of the things is, when you have privilege, you don't realize that you have privilege. But anyway, I love that quote. But it's interesting that the scientific method also acknowledges that the observer effect, when there's a scientific experiment set up, the observer and their thinking and the angle that they are seeing from influences what result happens. So, even scientists, philosophers, religion, we all have to be in a process of, checking and getting feedback from others, what are my eyes, when I'm observing something, from what angle am I coming from, and what angle are other people are coming from, to sort of find the truth more clearly. Yeah.
Parimal has raised his hand.
Yeah. Thank you, Sachi.
Yeah.
You give a new understanding to me about the free thinkers. It's good. because all the while I have a different perception about these free thinkers. The last line, think that clash with your own custom, privileges, and belief. Many things we hear about these free thinkers. Sachi, please, can you define this free thinker? You give a very good understanding for me today.
Free thinkers are actually something like independent thinkers or lateral thinking. See, as always, we have certain things followed in one way. Unless we try to think laterally, we can't find other solutions. So that is why the free thinkers have got lateral thinking. And there, we should not be prejudiced by our customs, privileges, or beliefs. Customs is actually what we follow. And privileges, sometimes people bribe you and put you in a situation to follow their words, so something like that. So those are what they meant as privileges. So then you are not independent. You are like, say, for example, in the case of a horse being covered laterally, what Ahmed says, that is not, there is no freedom. It is doing a labor. So, but we humans are evolved in the top level, and we should know what is life and how to live life freely and fully. So that is why we should have our free thinkers, but it should not harm the others. That's very important. We should not bring any problem to any other people. Mainly it is for updating and upgrading, because we can't stagnate in one class. Say, for example, in the school also, if you like the teacher, would you like to stay for years and years in one class? No, we always want to get promoted, go upwards, but you follow what is good from the lower classes. So it's something like that. So when you are free thinker, you are really living, and you are enjoying the freedom and also the what do you call the life juices.
Very good. Thank you so much. You give a very good idea, good perception about this free thinking. People who believe in reasons, there's nothing, they always believe with reasons.
But Paul, there are always a lot of people that when you talk with them, they say, my clergy believes in this, so I believe in that as well, which is really that example of that horse that is covered his side eyes. Doesn't think by himself or herself. It thinks because that other person thinks it is true.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those people as well.
Very good. Sachi, you give me a good new understanding about these free thinkers. All the while we have a different idea.
Of course, you have to justify. You have to justify your conscience.
Many people, they say free thinkers, but they are not free thinkers.
You should try to, it's easy because we all have the brain level is same. Only the way we are thinking is different. That's why we have different type of beliefs or following or something like that. But if you are free and see whether it is true or substantial for your conscience. If your mind is satisfied, then it is for you. That's why actually, when I started to write a book, I started to write on spirituality. But there was some unknown which I couldn't answer, and it slowly moved into the nature. I didn't move it. Then I had to read a lot of papers on science and things like that, and compare them, contrast them, things like that. And finally, I found something for my conscience. And I wrote that book, in fact, as Nature is a True God. Of course, it could be the true God because our religions would have meant that Father in heaven is actually the heaven is the whole thing. So it's like that. That's my view. Anyway, if you satisfy your conscience, then it is right. You are living.
I think that Tolstoy here states that a free thinker is a person that understands others without fear of losing their customs and privileges and beliefs. It's when a person understands other people that are out of their customs, beliefs, and privileges. So that's a free thinker.
In fact, you don't need to lose your customs if they are good and satisfied for you. With that, we'll have to update or something like that. Because so many customs are very good. Say, for example, in our religion, these bhajans, yoga, and meditation are very good physically and mentally. So those things, we can have it always. But otherwise, to find out with what you call proof or without any imagination or suggestion or any unknowns, it's better to know them. So this, in the case of science, I have seen that they have proved, and these experiments are repeatable, and they have accepted challenges, and they are corrected or things like that. But only the details are questionable. I can remember Perry used to tell that we really don't know fully something. We don't need to do fully. We are not scientists. The fundamental or the flow. So for example, how this earth is formed and how it is going to end up. We don't need to know the details of, say, for example, atoms. There are so many things now coming in. That's just, as a layman or as a normal person, you don't need, that is for the scientists. So the fundamental is always the same. Say the apple falls from the tree when it is ripe, is always. There can be so many different explanations for gravity, weight, and speed, and things like that. But we don't need to worry so much on that. If you like, you can study it. Everything is in the internet. Yep, thank you.
If there's no other comments, we can go to the next quote.
Can I read both quotes and then discuss it briefly?
Sure.
First one from the Jewish scripture, but those who suffer, he delivers in their suffering. He speaks to them in their affliction. He is wooing you from the jaws of distress to a spacious place free from restriction, to the comfort of your table laden with choice food. And from the hidden words of Baha'u'llah, O son of bounty, out of the wastes of nothingness, with the clay of my command, I made thee to appear, and have ordained for thy training every atom in existence and the essence of all created things. And my purpose in all this was that thou mightest attain my everlasting dominion and become worthy of my invisible bestowals. Do you mind if I share my screen? Okay. So this, the story of Job in the Old Testament, the Jewish scriptures. In brief, he's a wealthy and deeply religious person. Satan tells God, according to this story, that Job is only religious because he is wealthy. God tests Job by removing his wealth and his family and his health. Job complains to God that this is undeserved suffering. And part of the dialogue is what I just read. where God is explaining that he delivers people and speaks to people in their affliction and taking them to a better place. So although it is never fully explained to Job why he is suffering, he is patient and does not lose faith in God, but he does question God. So the quote is a partial answer to the problem of suffering. Viktor Frankl's was in a concentration camp in World War II, and he discovered that in some ways suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. So even though we might not understand exactly what's going on, if there's a meaning, it stops in some way being suffering. Like preparing for the Olympics, probably a lot of suffering involved, but we love to do it. And the book of Job finishes with Job saying, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. Therefore I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes." So seeing God somehow answers, at least partially answers, the question of why there is suffering, and maybe it ceases to be suffering. And I was listening to a video yesterday by a professor of religion who noted the statistics that in the Western countries, when people confront the problem of evil or the problem of suffering, in other words, why, if God is good and all-powerful, why would he permit suffering? In Western countries, people tend to stop believing in God, whereas in large other parts of the world, it doesn't affect their belief in God. Perhaps they see a meaning in it. The second quote is on the similar theme. Baha'u'llah says that he ordained for our training every atom in existence. So similar to the book of Job, he explains there's a purpose and a meaning and a promise. And that every atom in existence is for our training. And that, if you think about that, that's quite interesting, because he's teaching that God is all loving, and that everything that happens to us, every person we encounter, is ultimately good. So if someone is robbing from us or stabbing us, I mean, that's not sure, that's not good. It doesn't feel good, but there's a bigger picture happening, as it happened with Job. It's taking us somewhere. And if everything is good, then the way I would understand that is that the things which happen to us only happen to our body and our mind. They don't touch our soul. Our soul is always protected. And that's the eternal thing. Anyway, so those are two quotes which I enjoyed. Oh, Yong, is your hand up from last time, or is it up again? But you're muted.
The first one about the wealthy person, there are questions in here. It depends on where the sources of his wealth come from, whether that from his hard work or how he know how to invest the money or whatever he's doing. He's a good businessman or he's a bad one. And where's the wealth come from, that for the lotto, or where is the source of income? So that's one thing. The second thing is what he was doing with his money, what he was doing with his wealth. So that's the second question, because wealth by itself, somebody have wealth is not a crime, unless we have to answer the two questions that I posed. Just like you end up in a court and the court will ask you all these questions. But if you can answer all these questions nicely, then it's not a crime. So therefore, this person should not be tested and suffer, because his wealth comes from his good work, not bad work. So why he had to suffer about it?
It's a great question, because everyone is suffering and no one, perhaps no one deserves it as much as they're getting.
I'd like to say two things on this. One, that both are really phrases by Baha'u'llah, but I don't know the exact quote to give now. One, that we are only tested to our capability or our limits. Will not be tested over that. The other one is that Baha'u'llah says in another quote that we test people by gold, and the poor have a special place in the heart of God. So all these in combination means that suffering is good for our spirituality. It brings our spirituality out of us.
May I add here something?
Yes, Rahul.
As the topic of discussion is sorrow or suffering, I don't know what on the quotation of Abdul Baha, that means I'm unable to remember at this time, but it says that sorrow is the reminder of our capacities at the same time. And it reminds us how capable we are. In another example, somewhere I read, I forgot the name of the book, but it says, God says us that whenever we are going for cultivation or we are going to bow our crops, first what we do, that we break the lands or mud properly by tractors, by something tools, so that it can give a better fertilization. So at the time when we are breaking the mud, although it is paining for the mud, but it is providing a good fertilizer. At the same example, that whenever sorrows or sufferings comes on our mind, it actually giving our fertilization for the better crops. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Rahul. Even though we can't understand what God understands, still, as individuals, maybe not the whole world at the same time, but as individuals, we have spiritual eyes. And when we see God, as the book of Job finishes, and seeing God, I guess, is a feeling, a powerful feeling. We get through his writings or through seeing him in other people or in his creation, or most especially when he manifests himself, then suddenly we have some faith that, like someone training for the Olympics, they have some faith that there will be an Olympics and it's going to be good, even if they don't come first.
Yeah, can I give a little comment about this suffering?
Yeah.
I heard someone saying everybody is suffering. I think it is because we are ignorant about our life. If you understand the nature and the natural creation and the natural events, there is no room for suffering if you follow the action path. So as we are born here, we have to do appropriate actions. And wealth is not actually the criteria for a good life or a peaceful life. If you have wealth, you have always problem. It's like there's a law, natural law says, possession is inversely proportional to peace. Because when you possess something, you are always afraid whether it will go out from you or whether you will lose it or something like that. So having wealth is not the real life. Another thing is suffering. If we understand the nature, say in medical field, there are two ways of treating illness. One is prevention and the other is treatment. So in nature, it goes as a preventive treatment or preventive way of avoiding the problem. If you go to treat, then you have to acquire the suffering and then treat. It's of course not told in my belief, this nature. Because when we know that there are certain things which are going to occur naturally, we understand it and we have to do the necessary action to avoid it. Say, for example, if there is a storm or a tornado or something coming in, we have to go out to somewhere to protect ourselves. We can't stay in that spot and say, oh, we are suffering, and we can't call God to help us. It's like asking an insurance company. So here, the action is very important for suffering or happiness or peace. We have to do the appropriate action. For that, we have to understand the fundamental of it. So that is how I look into in regards to the nature's setup. Say similarly, you can see these are happening in the animals and plants. They are just doing their actions. They don't go to complain or go anywhere to tell something, and they have to run. If there is a predator, they have to run away or fight back. So that is how, this is actually the knowledge about true creation and the events of the creation. Well, that is my following. Better we take the prevention path. Don't wait till we go to treatment. Then we will have so many problems, of course.
Yeah, I would go along with that. I would probably add that perhaps these Holy Scriptures are taking the preventative approach, because if we understand why we're suffering, I mean, you can't totally prevent suffering, it's part of being human. But if we understand something about it, then it ceases to be suffering, which is why a lot of people, sometimes the ones who suffer the most, are actually the most joyful people.
Suffering is for the progress of man. There must be suffering for the progress of man. If man don't suffer, then the progress is retarded. One of the story which is said by Abluba, the plant, the rose,
That's all right, we can still hear you, Param.
Sorry, there is some visitors here. My puppy is making noise. So Abluba says, he gave an example about the rose plant. The plant that is well trimmed will give better flower the next season. So you have to cut. So suffering is likewise the same. The person who undergoes suffering become a better person. It's a learning process. And if Siva can share the hidden words number 51, Arabic 51, Baha'u'llah talk about the calamity. O son of man, my calamity is my providence. Outwardly it is fire and vengeance, but inwardly it is light and mercy. Hasten thereunto, that thou mayest become an eternal light and an immortal spirit. This is my command unto thee, to thou observe it. This is another one of things. So man has to undergo suffering to progress. Thank you.
I think, yes, Colin said that it is inevitable. Suffering is inevitable in our life. Some are due to our own action, it's the consequences of our own action. And some are inflicted by others onto us. Whichever it is, it trains us. It gives us the opportunity to become stronger and better. And if we actually reflect on our own suffering that we had and how we passed through that and what was the lessons we learned, then we will realize there is always something good in the suffering that we had. But at the same time, while we say that, okay, suffering is inevitable, is for our own good. Now, when we see someone else's suffering, that gives us a different opportunity. We can't simply say suffering is for good, and so you better suffer. I think if we see, I mean, if we talk about God, so I had to use this. We are all created in the likeness of God, and every other human being is also of the likeness of God. So when someone is in suffering, we should be feeling that pain. And if we feel that pain, then we will try to do something about it. So rather than saying, oh, this is inevitable, it is for your good, and therefore I don't have to do anything. No, if it was my pain, I will be still trying to do something. So if another person is suffering, I should consider that as a pain on me and try to do something.
Yeah, I go along with that. And I'd also say that even though suffering from the biggest perspective has a positive result, still, it doesn't mean we're looking for suffering. We're trying to reduce it in this world as much as possible, because the only suffering which we really want ultimately is our own realization of our distance from God and our longing to be closer. And I can imagine a much better world in the future where we're all kind to each other and helping each other, but still, just that pang internally will be our suffering.
Yeah, I think suffering is a derivative of a law, and Abdul-Baha describes it very well. The law is composition and decomposition. Now, we humans are beings that are composed of elements. So physical suffering, for example, when this composed entity tries to decompose, then the suffering occurs. Like, for example, if you have Parkinson's disease or other diseases of cancer, these are based or derivative of that principle, the principle that is in the world of composition and decomposition law. So when we have beings that are composed from elements, there will be always suffering, because there's a consequence of composition that is decomposition. And that's why unity is important because unity is composition. That's why God is important, because God is unique, one. I think suffering comes from this decomposition.
Sachi.
Yeah, in fact, it's about suffering. Actually, we are not supposed to suffer. And God will not put suffering into us. It is all created by us. Say, to avoid suffering, we have to do appropriate action. You can be poor or rich or something. You don't need to suffer. You may have lesser one. The other thing is, we have to have the attitude to share with others. Say if you have too much, or give it to someone who is unable to do good action or proper action. Sometimes all actions are not the same. Some people are clever, they do act very well, and they come up and collect money or something like that. So there are innocent people who don't know the shrewd way to earn money. Share with them. And the other thing is service. So if these are there, actually, an average person need not suffer. So for example, and also you must understand the nature. Nature is that, is action, and what you call human values have to be applied, like what I told before. So if it is like that in my life, I don't know, after understanding nature, I have very less suffering. Even medically, pain and things are all natural. There is a reason for that. So we didn't need to suffer. We had to act how to stop that suffering. And God will never make us to suffer, because in his policy, suffering is so bad. Just think of these children having Down syndrome, autism, and there are children born without limbs and things like that. Do you think God will do that? No. It is our faults or accidents or genetical problem. So these have to be prevented. So we can't go and complain to God, I'm suffering, please. We have to do our actions. That's also appropriate action. And otherwise, if you are doing well, share with the people. There are so many poor people without food. We are throwing so much in the bin. So we must have that attitude. It's all created by us. So suffering could be avoided by action. Don't be greedy. If you are greedy, you suffer. There are need, take the need. That's how I understand. These are all nature's law. Nature has set up like that. And if God is there, he will never let us suffer. We define God as loving, fair, and also forgiving. So many things. So he did not suffer. Consider these things, especially these genocides, the children and babies with these genetical problems and not coming. So, and even this COVID, these are all not by God. These are all nature's problem. We have to act and solve it. Find solutions. Then you can be happy. I don't need to be a millionaire to be happy. The main thing is our food. First, food. Find food and a little bit of comfort here and there. So I think we can solve the suffering if you understand and work on these points. These are created by humans. And except the predators. When they come and attack, of course, we have this thing, and that is also the nature says, you defend yourself, fight or flight or do something and escape or camouflage. So like that. Thank you. That's all I get about suffering.
Thank you, Sochi.
I think we can divide suffering into two categories. physical suffering and spiritual suffering. I think from my point of view, physical suffering is the cause of that law of composition and decomposition. But spiritual suffering is driven from our egos and self. And if we have egos and self, like for example, I say, why am I not elected on that committee? I'm better than the other person. This is driven from myself and ego. And that's why I'm suffering. So I think there are two kinds. There are spiritual sufferings and there are physical sufferings. And they are based on these different things like self and ego, and the other one, composition and decomposition.
Placenta.
No, I just, when Sachi was talking, I was thinking about the mental suffering, but Ahmed touched on spiritual suffering. There are people who may have everything materially, but they go through emotional or mental suffering. So I don't know what type of help we can do. I think that type of, there are so many people. We don't realize they are going through so many suffering emotionally and mentally. So they may have everything, all the comforts and material means, but mental suffering is also there. I don't know whether that can be put into the spiritual suffering which Ahmed was talking about, but
good question.
Maybe the spiritual thing may be a solution for people who are suffering mentally. I don't know.
That's a good question. Is mental suffering a material thing or a spiritual thing?
Can I elaborate on that? This mental suffering, it's also again not understanding the nature. So you need not go down mentally, because if you have problem, you must know what's the cause it is. You need not go down on mentally. So what we are doing now is, after they go down on mental this thing, so because of ignorance, then we are trying to treat them. I always think of prevention. So if you understand, say if I am poor, I know there is something wrong which has come from my family or my inefficiency or something like that. So I need not go down mentally. I have to do the action for that. Oh, I work like this. So in fact, it is the case, we can see there are so many people from down to have come up well by doing action, by studies or business or that and this. So we have to look into that. Even the psychiatrists, they treat on that, on the natural causes. So you want to talk to them, they will tell, yeah, it is like that. So you don't need to worry. So something like that. There is only the drugs help them to postpone the effects. Otherwise, when they talk about nature. Just, I have listened to so many psychiatrists because a part of my nephew says, he talks immediately onto that. This is a natural thing. And the ego and things are really our fault. We don't follow human values. When we follow human values, those things will never come in. Unfortunately, our brains are very sharp. We try to run over the other. That is wrong. That is the wrong human value. So if you all understand that we are here only for, say, average 80 years, right? What's the big this thing about having million or billion? Are we going to take it with us? No. Or our children, are they going to spend it in a better way? We don't know. So why we go for these greedy things? Need is first is food, then a bit of comfort. So that's how we have to understand life and the nature. Then definitely we won't get into even mental problem. See, for me, I am sure in my case, I will never get a mental problem because I have reasons. I know the reason is coming from nature. This is nature answers everything.
Yeah, thank you, Sachi. Perry, have we got time? Should we be?
Jung has some comments.
Won't be long. Talk about the decomposition and composition that I may talk about. I just come up with an example. I don't know whether it's going to be, like apply to your explanation. Just say a farmer, I do a farming job, for example, and just say if I can do a farm and I have no people to work for the farm and I got a drought, I got no water, I got cyclone, everything. So I could not harvest good grains or good crops. And therefore by nature, it's not my fault. I will be suffer. And because I have nothing to eat and I can't save any crop or grain in my store or my farm. So therefore, as you say, physical will be suffer, composition, decomposition, and that will relate it to my spiritual that I will be suffer also because I will not be able to help the poor or the animal or even the birds when they come and ask for the crops. I have nothing to give them. So therefore, I think is nature play a very important part in our suffering also, and we cannot avoid it. The second question, the second answer is related to calling first code. I'm a farmer, and if I do a good harvest, I can be very wealthy, a good wealthy farmer. And then I put all my crop and my grains into the store. And during a drought or people hungry, starvation, I can open the store and give them my grain and my crop that I saved during the rainy days. So therefore, even wealth that comes from my hard labor, God will not test me or make me suffer because of the good action that we made. So therefore, for each situation, we got to study case by case. We cannot have one coat that cover everything, one size fit all. So that's how I come up with some ideas, and I hope it might help myself about about all that philosophy ideas.
Thank you.
Can I also say something else? Again, I think we can divide sufferings into two categories. A category that is under our control and a category that is not in our control. I'll give a metaphor. If I drive correctly and by law, I will not hit another car and I will drive properly and pass my way and go home and no issue. But if I'm driving and somebody gets drunk and comes and hits my car, then that is not in my hand, yeah? So there are two types of sufferings. One that I can control, as Sachi says, that if I control it, the suffering would not happen. But there is another suffering that is out of our hand, and it's caused by others and by nature and so many things, so many causes. So there are two types. And the type that we don't have control, really we have to appreciate it, that it will bring a spirituality into us. It will bring us qualities, spiritual qualities or human qualities that are good.
Yeah, these are actually all odd cases. And broadly speaking, the nature says we should be at the correct place at the correct time. So because nature changes. Every second there is a change in the cosmos. And there is either rain or flood or heat or something like that. So that we must understand. Other thing is, there we have to say, move away. You don't be at the wrong place at the wrong time. That is other nature's law. So that we can't help it. Say, for example, in a few billions of years, Earth is going to burn. Everyone is going to die. So that is nature. You should know that. We should know that. If that happens, I will welcome it because it is a nature. We are on this very second or very low. Nature is the biggest. So that when that happens, we have to accept it. So we can't say, oh, you can't burn the earth, because when it goes closer and closer to the sun, this can happen. Or even otherwise an asteroid or meteorite hits somewhere. It is natural. So we should know these things. That's what we must know, the environment first, where we are, how we are formed. Then we have answers to all. The main thing is be at the correct place at the correct time.
Thank you. And probably we will move to next quotation. What's her name? Jung. We don't have that on our PowerPoint, but she has quotation to share. Would you like to share?
Oh yes, I think this quote that I took from the Baha'i Press Holy Writings. I think it's a bit we are in a topic of wealth and suffering and everything. So this one is very relevant. I said, O son of man, should prosperity befall thee, rejoice not, and should abasement come upon thee, grieve not, for both shall pass away and be no more. So this statement, you probably have learned this statement. And for me, the word abasement can be translated with another synonym that can be a bit closer to the meaning, you know, the opposite of prosperity. So that's talk about linguistic point of view. The second view is that when we become rich, we should not be so happy. And if our richness or wealth does like diminish or just disappear, then we should not grieve so much, because both of them shall pass away. You know, just like a fleeting cloud from the sky, everything fleeting around Earth, like in the universe, everything fleeting. So whether you are rich or you are poor, the time will pass very quickly. And so there will be no more. So there will be not so much happiness and not so much suffering. So that's how I understood this.
I put the quotation on the, can you see it?
So when I read this quote,
Yes.
yeah, I only had a big concern about the translation of the word abasement. Because here when you talk about prosperity, if we can get a better description that go opposite of prosperity, and we don't use abasement, then what other words are we gonna replace it?
Well, because the original must be in Arabic or Persian. I don't know which one it is. Those who have translated must have taken due consideration and diligence to translate this. So I don't know whether we want to change any of these things, but your choice of this quote well fits with the previous discussion that we had. So, Sachi was saying that we don't have to make millions, and actually that it's not going to give us happiness or whatever it is.
Yeah, I just only quickly look the word abasement in the Google translation.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of like Oxford Dictionary and all that other dictionary, but I just want to say in a common way that most people will click into quickly, you know, like really fast glance. And in Google translation, the word abasement for me is not so clear when we talk about the meaning of prosperity, you know, the whole context, the whole meaning of the code. So therefore I just put question marks on it. But I mean, it's more like linguistic views. It's not a major thing, as long as people understand it.
Anyone who reads this for the first time, probably they can, maybe Sachi, what do you think? Because we have the Baha'is are used to this and they just check it. Probably we were not free thinkers like Jung is thinking. So
yeah, this is again a natural law. Because things will pass. That's a real me. The last line says, "For both shall pass away and be no more." Everything will pass off. Happiness or sorrow or suffering. Only thing is act. So prosperity befall, don't worry, rejoice, not to worry. That will go off if you do that action. That's the only explanation I have on nature's law. Things are not going to be the same. Say even our climates, you can see heat have to go. With the heat, immediately rain comes because of the other scientific effects. So likewise, in our case also, but only thing is we have to act. We can't just hold that and wait. Then you have to be in that forever. If you have a problem, act, think of something, what can I do? Better if you can prevent it, if not, treat. It's a nice, very good statement based on nature again. I'm happy to see this. Both shall pass away and be no more. Think of our climates.
My understanding of this quote is that Baha'u'llah wants us to have patience and not joy when sudden things happen in our life. For example, in my life, I've known people that suddenly become rich, and they don't want to know you anymore because they're rejoicing on their wealth. And there are also the people that are thinking that they are abased because they don't have the wealth that others have. And I think patience, and we are transient beings, and transient beings go through motions of up and down, and composition and decomposition. So Baha'u'llah wants us to be more spiritual in this quotation.
You mean you're talking about, you know, when we trading money, then we should not be sad or be happy too much when we see the fluctuation in the market.
Well, yeah, if you're doing share market, again, the same issue comes. If you suddenly lose a lot of money, you have to be patient. And if you rejoice with gaining a lot of money, prosperity follows abasement, and abasement follows prosperity. So I think he wants us to have moderation and patience, spiritual attributes.
I think the general tendency for human beings is to be happy and excited when we have prosperity, and when there is a downfall, there is a loss or whatever that we lose, then we are sad, we will be grieving. This is a general tendency. And God is telling us to say, don't worry, they both will pass away. So take both on a neutral way, on a middle way. So that's what it is. But Jung asked a question. I mean, probably, and I don't think that the translators had any mistake or whatever it is, but I think her question was, they used the prosperity and abasement as an opposite thing, whether that is the true opposite. Is that the question you asked?
Oh, no. I'm just saying that my question is that instead of using the word abasement, we use a synonym of abasement, like something that can tell people be clearer and seem more simple.
Yes, okay. Yes, I mean, yeah, there could be many words, but we don't know why they chose it. But at least we understand it is something that we go down, we are losing something, our status is drained down. Okay, I think Ahmed wants to say something.
Yeah, and I'd like you guys to concentrate on these words, befall thee, and the other one is come upon thee. So these are not in our hands because they occur on us. Yeah. So it's caused by God. And then Baha'u'llah says in another place, we test people by gold. When prosperity and abasement come, there are things that are not in our hands. They befall on us by God. And we have to be watchful of our reactions. If we become prosper and rejoice and we don't see the other people, obviously we failed the law of God. And if abasement comes upon us and we are not patient, then we fall out of the God's test.
I think in Buddha teaching, he said a similar thing like this. What Buddha taught people in the Buddhist teaching, that people should not move their heart. They should always keep the heart the way the heart is, like purity, and so therefore the heart should not become so greedy or, like ambitious or whatever that might affect the coming of Buddha into their heart. That's something similar like this.
Can I say also something? Sorry, I was late. I had to do something. I feel that, the power of now, when we learn that we shouldn't concentrate
concentrate so much on the past and the future, and whatever we have now, to appreciate what we have and be grateful, whether we have a lot or whether we have not so much. And I think that if you have too much, then you always worry, oh, something might happen to it. That's the one that you fall, because being worried and being always, looking after things, if you have so much, then is the fall already. Because I've also, that so many people who get to where they want and they get so much money and they are still not happy. Because I feel that even prosperity, you may have a lot, but either you are worried about the security or you are worried about losing it, and always worry. And when you don't have, if you always worry that, oh, if I die, or again, always worry and about future, what's going to happen, again, there is a loss in any way, both if you have or you don't have. That means we have to be content with what we have and be happy. As Abdul Baha always says, be happy in what you have. It doesn't mean you don't strive to get better or to improve. That means that in any case, you have to, by the grace of God, what you have to be grateful and not so worried about always what is going to happen in the future or what happened in the past. Oh, I lost, I should have done this, I should have done that. Then you lose the power of now. I like that power of now, to always concentrate on what we have or what we do now.
I think Rahunda has to go. Rahunda, are you there?
Yes, I am here. Can you please excuse me? I like to go leave. It was a good discussion. Maybe I'll see you all next week.
Okay. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you. See you. Bye.
Okay. Okay. If we don't have any more comments on this, shall we? I am conscious about the time. Maybe I will ask Jung to give me your other quotation.
Oh, I just don't have other quotation, but have a little prayer from this book called Saint Raphael. The reason that I chose Saint Raphael because he's a healing, he's more like a healing doctor of the church, and he's one of the archangel. So, as you know, the Catholic Church, we had 7 archangels that we read from the book. And this Saint Raphael is one of them. And for me, he posed a very powerful sort of multi-skilling task angel. And because of we are in a time of COVID-19, so his position is even more important. And he actually is a multi-skilling task because he looks after a lot of aspects of life, like marriage, healing, happy meetings of joy, and travel, especially traveling. People move here and there. You know, even queuing for testing COVID, it made me really worry because he's the angel that look after people move around. So I just want him to safeguard people, give them healing, because he's just like a doctor that he's archangel, so he's very powerful. So people should be aware of their help outside there. So the prayer is this: O Raphael of the glorious 7 is 7 archangel. And what I'm saying, there are 3 archangels. The most powerful is Archangel Michael, Saint Raphael, and Saint Gabriel. Saint Michael look after the evil, the Satan, the Lucifer. He wear a sword. And when we call Jesus is a Prince of Peace, we call Jesus is a birth, just Christmas here. So we say Jesus is a baby, is a Prince of Peace. So why the Prince of Peace needs somebody like Archangel Saint Michael, who can fight Lucifer and Satan and evil. Okay, so the second is the Saint Raphael here. He look after the healing. And the third one is Gabriel, the Archangel Gabriel, who informed Virgin Mary that she was pregnant with the Son of God. So this is a prayer for Saint Raphael. Saint Raphael of the glorious seven, who stand before the throne of him, who lives and reigns, angel of health, well-being, the Lord has filled thy hand with balm from heaven to soothe or cure our pains, heal or console the victims of disease, and guide our steps when doubtful of our ways. So at the moment, as you see, we had a lot of vaccination, like many times, and testing and all that sort of testing, and all this little like paragraph of prayer, just trying to tell you that the issue that people are facing nowadays is not a new ones. It's been there like, long time ago. That's why we have all the archangel and all the angels come and help human beings. So that's what I need to say. Thank you so much for that.
We mentioned three archangels, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael.
Yeah, and Gabriel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, therefore, each one is for different thing, and Raphael is for healing.
Yes, Saint Raphael, his major jobs, he look after the marriage, of healing, of happy meetings, of joy, and especially traveling. Like people travel here and there, global traveling, domestic restrictions and everything. And the way that all the cars are queuing up for testing and vaccinations, you can see they block the traffic and everything. And we just need this Archangel Raphael to take control of everything there on earth. So therefore, that's one of the beliefs of the Catholic people have been reading about Saint Raphael.
I'm sure that your prayer helps us, because we are in a meeting now, and Archangel Raphael helps us in our meeting. So thank you for the prayer. And also, many people are suffering now because of the pandemic. Many are infected, and some are anxious and scared. In many ways they are suffering. So these prayers are very necessary, and I believe these angels will help us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any question or Ahmed?
Yeah, I'd like to say to Myung that, these saints were human beings that came to the physical world and lived their life. And because of their spirituality, they became saints, and now they passed away, yeah? So it's there's a similar phrase by Baha'u'llah, and he calls them concourse on high. These souls that have lived their lives in this physical world and now have passed to the next world, and they were very spiritual, very acceptable by God, and they have the power of helping us, helping people in this physical life. So these saints are definitely those people that help us. assist us in our lives.
Thank you. I heard about the concourses on high. I did read come through that statement.
Mm. So these souls that have lived in this physical life and they've gained so much spirituality that are so close to God, and they have the power to assist the people in the physical world. And actually, Abdul-Baha says all these sciences are manifested by inspiration from these people in concourse on high to the people that are living.
Any other comments? So, thank you, Yung, for that. I'm eagerly waiting for your talk one day. Yes. January 27th, we don't have a speaker, so if you can.
I don't think I know enough about the Baha'i discussions, because you see, in a Catholic point of view, we have different views there. Because if I'm not mistaken, the first song that we heard today, that you had Isaiah, the Prince of Peace.
Yes.
And you talk about wonderful Counselor, the mighty God, and somebody called Samuel sang them. And then one of the statement I read, the unseen kingdom of Baha shall be. And then you say, for me, I just only want to clip that part, the unseen kingdom of Baha shall be. But then in the Catholic Church, we don't know anything, just like I'm lost. I don't know anything about the kingdom of Baha because I was born Catholic, raised Catholic, and I don't know anything about other kingdom of other prophets.
I think God probably he tested me in the writings of in all the holy writings. There are words that are used in the translation, and they didn't use an equivalent English word, but they left the original word there. So that is in all the scriptures. There's no doubt about it. If you go and read the Buddhist scriptures, you will find words that is not English. And they are not names, proper names. They are words. They chose to leave it because their true meaning may not be reflected in the translation or for some other reason. So I believe this word Baha here, and there are many other words you will see in the Baha'i writings, are there for us to test us one way, and also what is the true meaning? Why did they choose to leave it like that? So the Baha is, you can say many words in English, splendor or radiance or glory or whatever it is. So the kingdom of glory or kingdom of God or whatever it is, but they chose to leave the word Baha there. But it is not a different kingdom that is described in other religious scriptures, the kingdom of God.
Yeah, I thank you very much for that explanation. When I was young, I read quite a lot of books.
You are still young. I think your name is...
Thank you.
And
I
your
read a
kid is
lot.
also young.
You know what? I read a lot of books, and they, actually, when people die, when they went to heaven or they go to heaven, they get lost there. You know why? Because in the Asian area, there will be king and queen of God or dragons. Dragons will be around the east of the sky, and on the west will be other god, and then let's just like in Greek island, there will be another god. So another, almighty God somewhere in Greek, in Latin, in all different skies. So therefore, when people die, when they go to heaven, they will get lost there. They don't know where they're going, which part. If they're Buddhist, they will go to Buddhist Nirvana, the heaven of Buddha. And if they belong to another religion, they will go to their God space. Like Sputnik, like space flight. You got to have different space flight to take them there. So therefore, it's young people, they're gonna get lost all this. I don't know about how I don't know about how other people, but young people, obviously, if they die, they don't know where they're going. Nobody taking them. Or they might be taken on a wrong bus or wrong journey.
This is another thing that I learned through this, of course, through the guidance of Baha'u'llah, try to understand all the religious scriptures as long as they are related to the spiritual matters. They try to say the same thing. So I try to say that I try to see those writings from different religions, what happens to us after death. And I see that they are all saying the same thing. And if there appears to be difference, one of the two things, my understanding of my religious scriptures is wrong, or my understanding of the other religious scriptures is wrong, or both are wrong. Both my understanding of this and that are wrong. That is how I look at it. So nirvana, or heaven, or kingdom of God, or whatever it is, this is how I look at it. They all refer to the same thing. So in Hindu scripture, they use the term, or in our scripture, moksha. So they all refer, that's how I try to reconcile. But it is up to us how we want to. But if we take the approach that they are free thinkers, as Sachi said, that their understanding of these spiritual matters are so high and they don't contradict. So we have to bring our understanding so that there is no contradiction. That's how I approach, and that's how I satisfy myself. Any other comments?
There is another phrase that is used. It's called I just lost it. The kingdom above. Mm-hmm. That is used in Bible as well. Kingdom on high. That is used in Bible as well. So Baha really is an Arabic word that means light, means glory. And so they wanted to leave the name in the Baha'i writings there. They really mean the kingdom above, the kingdom that we go after passing. So it's really a phrase for describing that world.
Go to if you don't have any comments, shall we go to the next quote?
Thank you.
In one of the
Yes.
Bible sorry, in one of the Bible quote that John 8:13, I think so, it says, you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. So I think as per my understanding, whenever, if you know the truth, that means the series of prophets, or it may be the truth of prejudice, or the truth of love, or truth of eternity, or the truth of kingdom. When you know the ultimate truth, the truth will set you free from all kind of prejudice and barrier between loving each other. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is it said John?
Yes, sir. It is in Johann 8:32.
8:32. John 8:32. Thank you. Very good. I really appreciate that you have done a good research about the Bible. Okay, and this is the next quote. I think it's
yeah, it's mine. Yeah, I've selected this quotation for a special reason. Let me tell you a bit of background before I read it. This quotation comes from a letter that Baha'u'llah wrote, an epistle to the Son of the Wolf. And Son of the Wolf is a Shia clergy mullah in the time of Baha'u'llah that really was notorious and gave fatwa to kill a lot of Babis. He writes, Baha'u'llah writes to him and says that really stop these things that you do, they're not right. So I selected this section that talks about the Son. Let me read it for you. And likewise, he said, oh, by the way, I forgot to say that he quotes from Bab, the forerunner of Baha'i faith, because these are, if you look at they're in quotes. Baha'u'llah is telling this guy what the Bab, which was executed in Iran because of his belief, what he has said. And likewise, he said, he glorified with his mention, resembleth the sun, where unnumbered mirrors to be placed before it, each would, according to its capacity, reflect the splendor of that sun. And were none to be placed before it, it would still continue to rise and set, and the mirrors alone would be veiled from its light. I verily have not fallen short of my duty to admonish that people and to devise means whereby they may turn towards God, their Lord, and believe in God, their Creator. If on the day of his revelation, all that are on earth bear his allegiance, mine inmost being will rejoice, inasmuch as all will have attained the summit of their existence and will have been brought face to face with their beloved, and will have recognized to the fullest extent attainable in the world of being the splendor of him who is the desire of their hearts. If not, my soul will indeed be saddened. I truly have nurtured all things for this purpose. How then can anyone be veiled from him? For this have I called upon God and will continue to call upon him. He verily is nigh, ready to answer. So my understanding from this quotation is that the manifestations of God, he starts saying he, and the name is the Bab, glorified be his meat. And then this is true for Christ, for Muhammad, for Buddha. They resemble the sun. they put their rays, or the sun has rays that cover everything. And then he says that people are like mirrors, and if they are clean and polished, they can reflect that ray of sun in much better way. And if they are veiled and cannot see the sun, they would not reflect. And but the sun will be always there, is giving its rays. And this is true for God, that God is like that sun, as a physical metaphor, that it has, His grace is continuous and shedding on everyone. So that's my understanding from these quotation. Now, my next one, if you go to on, or do we want to talk about this one?
Let's see if there are any comments or questions.
Yeah.
Any comments or questions?
Can I just ask you something really quick here, please? I think in the old day, God talked to people through the manifestation of God, of the prophet. I think we just had to request for miracle that if God can just talk to people directly, whether by his, like he revealed himself, he come to people, talk to people, and he will not go through the manifestations of God, that will be easier for them, because most of the manifestation of God has been martyred, have been killed, suffer, torture. So I think if there's a better way for God to communicate with people directly, that will be so much better and easier for everyone.
On last week, I gave the example of chair and the carpenter. The estate is beyond us, and the only way he can show himself is through his manifestations that come in a physical being, in this physical form, that we can understand, we can grasp. For our understanding is barred in order to see or grasp God. It's through them that, through their manifestations, that we can have that understanding of God. And the other thing is that, yes, they are sacrificed, they're executed, they're killed. And the reason for that is that people do not recognize them. Same thing happened to Muhammad, same thing happened to Christ, same thing happened to Moses. I'm sure same thing happened to Buddha. Same thing happened to Baba and Baha'u'llah. They were all persecuted and sacrificed.
Yeah, but you see, God did do some chosen people so they can come, just like the apparition of Virgin Mary, to the 3 young shepherds in the Portugal. And you see they were called as chosen people. They're not manifestation of God, they're little kids. And because probably they have pure heart, therefore God have chosen them. So therefore, if God can do that, then we can ask God to do more of these things, revelations, and we can ask for bigger groups, like instead of 3 kids, God can appear himself to 3,000, 300,000 kids. So that would be better. I mean, I wish.
Well, you have to have this in your mind, that we are a spirit as well. and we can feel God through our spirit all the time, at any time. So there's no, in order to see God in a physical way is meaningless. The only way is through our spirit.
Yeah, but that's what you said is, for me, scientific points of view, we don't need the martyrdom of the prophets. It's necessary. The martyrdom of the prophets become the steps, and the steps in the old days. But in the modern days, will the steps should be continued? We just only ask for pardon. If people have sinned, then people ask for pardon and confession. That's why we have confession in the church. And therefore, all the steps that the martyr has to go through cannot be avoided. Just like Jesus, when he was on the cross, he said, can I avoid this bitter cup? Or, Father, can you forgive them as they don't know what they've done?
Now, if we go to the next quotation, probably it would answer your question as well. I chose the other, if we go into the next one. No, it's not this one. It's Isaiah. Maybe it's above my quotation. Oh, that's it. Yeah. Okay, I chose these because for two things. First, it has sun in it because we were talking in the previous quotation about sun. Yeah. And then it also talks about coming of Lord. This is in Isaiah, and let me read it for you. No longer will you have the sun for light by day, nor for brightness will the moon give your light, but you will have the Lord for an everlasting light and your God for your glory. Now, if you look at this, if you look at it physically, does this mean that the sun will disappear, the moon will disappear when the Lord would come, which becomes really meaningless? So the sun and the moon here are a metaphor, and they have spiritual meanings. They have meanings that are not in a physical form. Now, Abdul Baha and Baha'u'llah have given a key to these sort of writings in Bible. And the interpretation by Abdul Baha for sun and the moon is many, have different meanings. If you happen to read Kitab-e-Iran or the Book of Certitude that is written by Baha'u'llah, he describes different meanings for sun and the moon. But in this phrase, I think what Abdul Baha has said about it is that the sun and the moon are the clergies of the time of the manifestations. Like, for example, in the time of Christ, the Jews, the clergies of Jews caused the sacrifice of Christ, the cause of death of Christ. So the clergies or the sun and the moons of the previous faith, they bar people, ordinary people, from grasping or understanding the new manifestation. Same thing happened in the time of Muhammad. Same thing happened in the time of Moses. Same thing happened in the time of Abraham. Baha'u'llah in his Book of Certitude, he describes goes through the life of different manifestations of God, the past religions, past manifestations, and he describes these things, that the sun and the moon are the clergies of the time of the manifestation that prevent people from understanding the new manifestation. And the same thing happened for Bab and Baha'u'llah. Clergies of Muslim faith raised against Baha'u'llah and Bab. And because of that, so many people were prevented from understanding his new faith. So that's my understanding from this quotation from Messiah, that when the sun and the moon do not shine anymore, i.e. the clergies of the time do not show the right path to people, then the Lord would come and the God of glory will be with you. So I like your comments about it.
So the sun, you say that they are the clergies at the time. So what is the moon?
Sun and moon are both clergies.
Oh, right.
Yeah, there are many interpretations for sun and moon. For example, in Islam, sun and the moon are Muhammad and Ali. Another interpretation for sun and moon is the obligatory prayer and fasting. So there are many interpretations for the sun and moon, depending on where they come in the writings of the past religions.
I like your explanation. What did you say about sun and the moon or the clergies that they stop the light from getting to the people?
Yeah, they prevented people to understand or accept the new manifestation because they are important people in the time. People follow them, like the Pope or Ayatollah or time of Christ, the clergies of Judaism. These clergies prevented ordinary people to understand or grasp the new manifestation.
Yes, thank you.
Baha'u'llah goes extensively in the book of Certitude and describes for every manifestation, he describes these type of people that prevented ordinary people to understand the new manifestation.
For the question that Jung asked, whether God will come and reveal directly, I think sometime in our memorial, God has chosen his messengers to come and reveal and guide mankind. And I think in the Baha'i writing, Baha'u'llah clearly says that is the way that he will be doing. So I don't know, but it is a good wish. If God can come directly to us, probably we should pray and see whether that will happen. But to my understanding, that is the way. And that is why Jesus said, I am the way.
I think as much as the sun cannot come to the earth because, or we can go to the sun because we get burned. It's good when that distance is there because we get the warmth and light, and all the living is living because of the sun, the physical sun. God is the same. If we want to get too close to him, you will get burned. Like it's out of our understanding or what we can even see. That's what God has put a distance between us and him for our sake.
Yes, but I mean, I'm happy with all the explanation, as long as the martyrs of the prophets will be stopped and should never, come back again, because they come to help human beings. So therefore, whatever happened, whether the sun can come to us or the moon can come to us, then for me, it's not a point that I want to say. I just want to say the martyr of the prophets and the manifestation shouldn't be keep going. Like shouldn't be like come back again and again and again through different times. So that was my wish.
Yes, I think it is a good wish. And I'm sure as we progress, we will become more civilized, more advanced, and become how to deal with the prophets and the messengers. Hopefully, they will not martyr them. Okay, now at the time is almost 9:15. Probably this is the Zore's one. You want to read and then
I think we should keep the time to 9 o'clock from next. I was going to suggest that, and we can leave the rest to the next session or something. But mine is very short, maybe 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes. And I just what Young is saying, that why we don't want any more martyrs or killing, but sometimes sacrifice. When the sacrifice is so deep, then everybody is attracted to that. Why the Bob, a 25 years old young or 30 years old young person is giving his life for his idea? That's what people gets to, because that is, Baha'u'llah says, when the fire of love is ablaze, it burned to ashes the harvest of reason. And people say, why? When we say they are killing people in Iran just because they are Baha'i, and then they say, why they don't say we are not Baha'is? Because they love what they believe. And it's the matter of having love. It's something in your heart that it can be reasoned. That's what Baha'u'llah put so much emphasis on, love. And I think love is something that nobody can reason why you do this or why you don't do that, because it's beyond the reasoning, that why we don't understand even sometimes. I've heard this so much from my children's friends, that why you didn't just say you are a Muslim, or it's not, because that's what I believe and that's what I love. And if the Bab or Baha'u'llah suffered so much, I can suffer a bit. It's nothing compared to that. And I love that quotation. I didn't know there's a theme for the discussion, but I just looked into books and I found that. And the other one from Rumi is, I like that one, that is saying, when you look for things outside, you can't find it. When you want to know it, you have to go inside yourself and find even the love, God, or you want to know or to see the sign of God, you have to go inside, like meditate, and what you are looking outside, you can find. Yeah, you can, yeah, if you like to talk about it, if you have time. But I just, I love the first one. I think maybe the first one is from the Seven Valley. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Books from Seven Valleys, yes.
Yeah.
So the second quotation, it doesn't refer to God and our soul.
Yeah, I think Rumi at the end, he talks always about, it's again like Seven Valley. You're reaching to a love of God. But that's what I got from that.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like a soulmate. A lot of soulmates are around in the universe. So when soulmates, they move along, they will catch each other like they catch energy or radiation or whatever. So more like what they call soulmates.
Good.
Yeah, I know some people, they believe in soulmate, but I feel that I believe that everything is from God. God put a sign of his love in me or in everybody. That's what you have to look for, that and find that. But you always have people who help you to get there, or people who take you away from to get to that, yourself, the real self.
Can I say something about the statement of Rumi?
Yeah, please. Hope.
We so often want to see God physically and hear him with our physical ear. Yeah. And I think the interpretation of his quotation is that I'll try to hear God with my ear and see God with my eyes, and knowing how blind that was, it's crazy. The lover is inside my heart. So God is inside our heart. We have the way to find God is through our heart, not from seeing by a physical eye or physical ear.
I remember in one of the quote or some writings Pankaj had put that it's like a statue. If you have a piece of stone and you want to make a beautiful person, you have to chip away all the impurity, and then you get to the real inside of the person. That is the same, similar, the second verse, the Rumi's poet.
I think Pankaj, he wrote it on his WhatsApp group, as well as in his talk he mentioned that, yes. So when we chip away the unwanted things from us, what is remaining is God. So that's probably what Rumi is saying. They are in each other all along. Any other comments? Maybe we have taken quite a long time, but I think I enjoy this format because everyone chooses quotation, and also they explain or they talk about it. So maybe next time, those who have not chosen any quotation, priority for them, and we will limit to 3 people's quotation and maybe a 4th quotation.
It would be nice to have the speakers as well. A mixture of the two would be beautiful.
Yes. Yes. So January 20th, we have a speaker, and February 3rd, we have a speaker. So
yeah, holiday season. Lots of people are holidaying.
And I'm trying to encourage the young to talk on the 27th. Okay, then. So then maybe we can conclude. Is that okay?
Yes.
And thank you all. I actually prepared a lesson, but I think.
Boy, wishing you a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your participation and continued support. And we are learning how to consult and how to go together and try to understand others' point of view. That's wonderful. So take care. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Sachi.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Yom.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Colin, Perimal, Alma.